A good thing that we do, a practice that we have here, especially for Christ Chapel, where we have a lot of touring acts that are interested in coming here. This space, you no doubt notice, is very, very, very unique. And it has a lot of complications to it. And we don't want a tour to walk in the morning of a show and be surprised by what they're seeing. Right. So what we have developed is a folder on Google Drive that we send out to anybody that's interested in coming to this space that has all of the information, all lighting, all video, all audio, all room dimensions, stage dimensions, everything. It has the patch list for the console. It has where they can plug in, where they can set up their board, what light fixtures we have, pictures, videos. It has all kinds of resources. In fact, a lot of these tours are like, this is fantastic. Undoubtedly, a lot of us are going to go serve in our churches, either in a hired position or in a volunteer position. And you may just find yourself in the booth of the church. And having a general knowledge of what is going on, even if you don't know that particular piece of gear, having a general knowledge is going to serve you very, very well. Some of the best advice that I was ever given as a student was to learn the other areas other than audio. I was an audio student, and I loved audio, and all I wanted to do was learn more about audio. But I was encouraged to learn about lighting and video. I may not know as much, I may not be able to go on site on a production and run circles around the lead guy there, but I can go and I can talk the language with him.
We struck along an 80.
I know when he says, go grab me a DMX cable, I don't come back with an XLR, right?
Right.
And you guys are going to get into video, and video is equally as confusing. And to some of you, audio is just this mind-blowing chasm of confusion, right? It's just so much going there and so much hearing and technicality and all of that. Everything has its complications. Your job is to gain a general understanding of it so that you can be knowledgeable to have a knowledgeable conversation with someone, right? And know what you're somewhat looking at. When I go on site with Corporate Live and I see their lighting guy on their lighting console, he pushes any button on that console, I have no clue what he's doing. No clue whatsoever. I just go, ooh, pretty light. But if he asks me to help him plug in his lights, set up his lights, go readdress one of his lights, no problem, right? I know what he's talking about. That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
So do your best, even if you feel like, I'm never going to use this information, do your best. It's well-rounded, and it's going to serve you well eventually, I promise.
Thanks, John.
Any other questions, comments?
I'm wondering, I don't know, Cameron, if you have a few looks you could spin up just so we can see some of your
Do it.
creative work.
Sure.
What's that?
Let me get myself a seat.
Oh, yeah.
Because leaning over the console is a great recipe for a back ache, I have learned.
And this is a few products that help. It's kind of interesting.
Alright, so...
So it's an LED that basically runs like a
Oh,
medicine.
an LED that looks like a
It
Edison.
looks come through like a medicine.
Yeah.
And this is also something that...
A lot of people like those looks.
Yeah, but
a lot of
basically it's
people
like the way of doing it. Because I saw somebody on Twitter saying like, people are like, why are you using fluorescents? He's like, I'm not. They're actually LEDs with like...
Let's see.
Like, that's really
Ooh,
weird.
what I can do, I can load up the show
You
file
can
from
get
the
them to
Christmas
be
program.
dimmable.
There you go.
Sure.
You can get them to be dimmable, but they're dimmable as LEDs and everything.
Derp.
And feel free to, tell us what you were thinking when you built that scene or what it might have significance for the show it was in.
There is also an iPad app that can be connected to this. It's a $50 app, actually.
I
See the little box
I don't
right there?
recommend
Those are
Those are all
individual
individual.
LEDs. Of course, they're just
Alrighty.
updated as their new tech, basically.
Here we
Yep.
go.
For like RAM and whatnot.
So with it okay with the app, could you just like kind of like walk around with the...
So the idea with the app is you're in this gigantic arena, and you need to go aim this light fixture, or this whole row of lights. You're not going to go and aim this light and then go back to the console and change and go to the next one and then go back and aim it. And maybe you're the only person on site that day. You can take the iPad with you and you go, okay, next.
Does it still look like
Next.
the same, like similar
That
setup, or is it?
it has similar features, but it doesn't look exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's the same.
I usually use a different third party.
It's the same rule of thumb for audio. iPad and phone interfaces, they tend to look, slightly different, but they have a lot of the same,
Same
functions,
functions.
that you want.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got lost. Like
No,
really,
we
really
went through a
not-
lot of stuff.
in the whole universe stuff. So
barely
like,
follow.
when you plug a light into a specific place,
Hmm.
how do you know
Which universe it's on?
Which universes and where is
That's
it?
actually a very intelligent question, because I didn't actually cover that. Each of those nodes, how we're converting from the network into the node and then to DMX, each of those nodes, I have to tell the node what universe it is, right? So some of these nodes up there are universe 3 and some of them are universe 4. They've been told to be that way so that they're separating out the universes and the fixtures on them.
Now, is the fixture tuned to, say, Universe 1, Universe 2, or is it always just one universe, so it doesn't have to know the difference?
Fixture, when you go to address the fixture, it's going to give you 1 through 512.
It doesn't think Universe 1 or 2, it's just...
It doesn't care what universe it's on.
It's gonna-
It's thinking what channel within whatever universe you put me.
So you
Right.
can go into a specific universe and find that specific channel
Correct.
as soon as you route it to wherever you want it to go.
And your lights,
Okay.
your fixtures are set to any one of those numbers, 1 through 512, well, in a bundle of them, like you said. Each light carries a bundle of channels. So you would set your first light for 1, say it's a 10 item light.
Yep.
The next one's 11,
Yep.
and the next one's...
You're always setting the fixture to the first number within the sequence
yep.
of that bundle. You're not setting it for 1 through 11. There's no feature on there that shows you 1 through 10 or whatever it is.
Okay.
It's just 1.
Another interesting thing is every fixture is picking up all 512 channels, and it's flowing through the fixtures often, and the fixture is just listening for...
For the parameters that
Yeah.
apply to it.
So there's
So-
a chance that if you press a wrong button or did something wrong, you could screw up.
Not necessarily. All it's doing is just like a speaker, it's passing information along. A cool thing that can be done is fixtures can be addressed the same, identical. So I can have multiple fixtures. Say I don't need individual control of them. I'd rather have them in one large group. I can address them exactly the same, and when I go to control it, they all function uniformly, right?
That would be, say, if you have a wash,
Yep.
and you want the whole stage to be washed in certain color. You could set every one of those lights to 1,
Yep.
and then
On
when
the
you put
same
1 up,
universe.
they all are saying, yes, I'm number 1, I'm going to do it.
In here, that doesn't make sense because I want to be able to individually select each fixture, and that's the way the system, it's an expansive system that allows me individual control of every single fixture. In theory, if I wanted to, I could address every single fixture up to the 512 within one universe to the same address, and when I run up that fader, it's going to select every single one of them, right? That's a really good question.
Are intelligent lights like these still have to be set to their channel at the fixture, or are you guys at a point where you can talk to a fixture and have it change
Certain
internally?
fixtures, so what Frank is talking about is called RDM, Remote Device Management. And what that allows me to do, I was talking about the server. I can go out on the server and certain fixtures, if they're intelligent and if the manufacturer built them a certain way, they are RDM capable, which means I can go out on the network and see that fixture sitting there on the network. And I can get into the settings of the fixture without having to go up there and press the buttons on the physical buttons and tell it to change its address. So I've had it before where we took a fixture down, sent it out for repair, came back without thinking, put it back in the air, right? Didn't think to check the address on it because I'm not a lighting guy. I just put the light back up. plug it in.
You will next time, though.
Next time, I definitely will. But luckily, I could RDM. I could go in digitally into the server area and through that connection, tell it what address I wanted it to be. And I switched it back. And it worked great. Some fixtures, I do believe it's my movers, are not RDM capable. No matter what, I have to go up there and change them.
So it's only specific routes that you can do that for.
Yeah, it's heavily dependent on the manufacturer. My moving lights are made by Very Light, which is owned by Philips, and they are the bane of my existence right now. Imagine your computer. You wake up, you turn on your computer. Imagine nothing happens when you turn it on. It's just blank screen. Just erased itself.
Oh, that's no
4.
fun.
There are 8 movers in here. 4 of them have completely erased themselves. The only way to fix that is to flash them, but you have to physically get up there and plug in a cable, drop it down, and with the USB adapter, flash the device, which involved a technician. So I had to get a lift. I had to go up, unplug the house, and plug in a cable, drop it down, and flash fixture. Okay, move on to the next one. Flash fixture. They're $8,000 fixtures
Why can't you just do that from down here?
because they're not RDM capable.
I wonder if the whole lighting fixture industry is going to go to RDM
It's
eventually.
gotta.
I mean,
It's gotta.
seems like a logical next
I feel
step.
like if it wasn't
Well, and the other thing
All
is,
kinds of chrome.
it's evolving. I mean, we've seen it in audio, we've seen it in video and lighting. Everything's moving, and it takes a minute for it all to come together. I mean,
Yep.
there was a time 15 years ago when the amps started to do a lot of DSP for us in audio, but you couldn't get in there all the time, or you had the special connectors, and it was just janky. And then 5 years ago they came up with, we can just network these these amps just like you would a computer, put an IP address on it, and it just keeps growing and moving forward and becoming more easy.
And each company is going to innovate and come up with their own proprietary product. And
That's what pisses me off so
and
much.
you end up with 15 different versions of all trying to do the same thing, but none of them communicate together. And it takes a long time for standards to be created. If you think about Blu-rays weren't the standard when we started out. There was HD, DVD, right?
Yeah,
And it was a competition. They were both doing the same exact thing, but
Well,
2 totally different formats.
in theory, they're both doing the same exact thing. If you actually can do it, it's way more complicated and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting.
But it is.
Mike has
it
got
is
a
logical.
question.
I do. So obviously these ones are set, and you said that the moving ones aren't. What was the
RDM.
RDM?
Yeah.
Do you take for your shows or your move? Do you know if your moving lights or do you take your? Sorry, are the lights that you take RDM or?
I don't believe so. We use Robe is our product lighting.
So when you set before you hang them, you have to make sure they're all.
I believe so. I don't know. Would you know that, Cameron? I don't know if you know much about Robe.
Robies should be RDM if they were made after when RDM was like a thing.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I mean, I've seen
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen our
Robies-
lighting guy have to readdress
Say
physically.
most-
but-
Most lighting technicians are going to do everything they can from ground level before they fly out the truss.
Okay.
I probably don't
And
like
they will
RDM.
check and recheck those addresses. Occasionally, they miss something or something malfunctions, and they'll try going that route if they can, but a lot of times they'll end up with a lift. Either they're bringing the truss back in, or they're going up with a lift and individually
Yeah.
adjusting it.
I don't know. I was just kind of going based off of like my curiosity, and two, like I've helped out with a few stage setups, teardowns type stuff. So I didn't know
Yep.
if the way they, because the company that my church uses when they go to their winter retreat, they're called 42. They don't use the RDM.
RDM, yeah.
Just based off of the fact that I've always seen them go up in the lift, that there's a light that's completely different than on the rest.
Yep.
And they have to like reroute it.
Yep.
I could.
So I didn't know if yours was like.
Yeah, and I wish I knew. I'll find out. I'll ask our lighting guy. And at this time, I do not know if Robes are RDM.
Any
See.
other questions, thoughts, concerns? Why do we do something a certain way?
Rather have you put it up, and then if you have to worry about it, just do something like that just to fix it. Just because
Yeah.
Structural lighting is tied into a DMX system as well, right?
Yep, so we have housekeeping come through here every single night, right? I don't want to have to leave the light board on all day, every day, so that somebody who's cleaning the floors can see what they're doing, right? The light board is intended for use with production, right? When an operator is actually back here. So what happens when nobody is in the room? There needs to be a system in place that's running in the background that's giving me generic use of the space. That is this right here, this little touch screen, right? It's a little panel that was custom programmed for us. There's one in Matthews as well. And it's a system called Unison. And that system takes a lot of the same information, all that addressing and everything. It's tied into Unison. And the designer programmed several things, basic features, for this space for generic use. And there's also little button panels around the room at each of the entrances. So when I walk in the morning, I hit the button, and our house look comes up, right? Pendants this color, stage isn't on, the house lights are on.
House lights would be these round incandescents.
Yep,
Or they're probably LED, aren't
they're
they?
all LED, but can lights. It gives people who are just walking through the general look of the space. It has the cross programmed in, because Dr. Stoll loves the cross, and we always want to have that illuminated. It was just kind of a pre-approved general look for the space, right? But I also have different presets on here. So if I lock out Cameron here, and he goes all the way dark, right? When I'm on touchscreen control, there's also timers going on in the background, back on in the server of the touchscreen. So the window lights come on a timer. At midnight, every single light in the room turns off. Things like that. They programmed it to flash at you 5 minutes before it turns off. So it tells the guests, get out, right?
Or me.
I can come in, I can hit house full. This is the generic look right here. This look right here, when you walk in 90% of the time, this is what the room looks like.
Is this
Right?
what the cleaning people clean to?
This is what the clean people would have, right? I also have a house half that just takes everything and cuts it by half, right? But I also have, on this remote particularly, I have a little bit more control. Say I have just some visitors in here. Dr. Stoll comes in on a tour, and we want to show off a little bit, but we don't want to turn on the console. There's features on here for the architectural lighting where I could turn everything blue. Or red. Or purple.
how fast can the lights change?
That's
That's
faded. You can,
That's
they
a fade.
change
It can
pretty
be
instantly.
instant,
Yeah.
Okay.
but we wanted a soft. Or I can turn them off completely, right?
I was just curious what the
Um,
tone is.
I can change stuff from the peak to the columns to the pendants and anything in between for color wise. I can go in and turn on stage lights from right here. Everything's kind of pre-programmed here so that somebody who is not knowledgeable, if you were to come look at this, you would be able to figure this out.
It's idiot proof.
It is the most basic, and if you walk into just about any conference room, a lot of places will have something very, very similar, right? It's some kind of button panel. Either it's a touch screen or it's physical buttons that have generic looks.
Or it's both.
The way this works is highest takes precedence. So in linking with the lighting console, when I turn on the lighting console, highest takes precedence. If I have house lights full on the touchscreen, no matter how much I try to dim it on the console, it's not going down. I have to actually take them out on here to be able to control it on the light board.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's kind of proofed. But then on the touchscreen, I have two very, very, very important buttons. One is called Stations Locked and Unlocked, which means I can lock those stations. So if I'm in the middle of a show and somebody hits a button for the house lights to go full, and suddenly I go from dark to full lights, that's a problem. That's really distracting. So I lock that out. If you've ever gone to a show in the Quorum, people lean against those stations all the time, and suddenly all the lighting just goes up. And there's no way to change it except to go all out and then change it again, because it's an old system. And then there's console versus architectural control, which is telling the system which device takes priority, basically. So, yes, good question. Architectural lighting.
So Cameron, you gonna show some scenes here?
Yeah, sure. Alrighty, so let's go through my show file here for the Christmas program. So the first couple cues are just basic, like generic cues that you'd find in pretty much any theater like show file. So I've got my work lights on Q1. Q2 is a. Ooh, it would help if I was on console control. Thank you. Q2 is a lamp check, which doesn't make much sense in here because it's LED, and it's not likely that any of these lights will be out, but I do have to check still, especially because of these weird, annoying movers that like to just randomly not do anything.
So it's basically every light on.
Yeah, it's basically every light on at like 20%. And if this were a venue where I add actual like incandescents in here that could potentially burn out, I'd be looking for burnt light bulbs in here too. Then we go to blackout check, which
Which one is that?
I've got the mark time on this like at 20 seconds.
Okay.
Because that one was being
So I
annoying.
currently, so you guys know, there is one mover missing.
Yeah, this guy.
I had one that was making grinding noises every time you moved it. All the gears were grinding it. So I had to get up in a lift and physically take it off the bar, bring it down, and send it out for repair.
So, yeah. So you don't have it right now?
Huh?
You don't have it right now?
No,
Oh.
it is not up there. I literally just
I
took
can't
the
see it.
connection that passed through it and connected it together, and everything else works.
So you just patch the daisy chain around it.
Alright, so let's take our subs down here. Alright, so we've got blackout check. And then here's our walk-in look for the Christmas program. So obviously we've got the red and green on the stage because it's Christmas. But then we've also got our house here washed in this like rainbow sort of thing. Because I wanted people to feel like they were like a part of the show from the moment they walk in.
Which
So-
mimicked the colors of the
Yeah,
program.
which then this is also inspired by, I don't know if you remember the posters for the program, but they have that rainbow mosaic thing. So I went for a rainbow for our walk-in look. So people are looking at their program and then they look up and they see the exact same thing.
I like how you have each of the windows washed in their own color.
Yep. Each window is a different. I washed the windows with their window color. Lighting is a lot about the subtleties. It's the little things that make all of the difference. I mean, and the same is true for video and audio. But. And then you'll notice our lights around the outside just went out because they wash a lot of light into the room. And then Dr. Stoll comes up to speak, house lights go down. I really love this cue because you can just see the rainbow. And it's like, especially the bubblegum seats over here. I particularly like those. Right, and then our fanfare begins. So this is, I believe, it's kind of weird because we didn't have the full stage here.
Say,
for
imagine the
actual program.
back half of the stage is missing.
Yeah, because that's where the
The band was on the floor.
band was on the floor there. So the band starts. We've now moved our rainbow up to the pendants because I'm going to have to get rid of this house lighting in a second because my movers have to go other places. So I wanted to keep the rainbow look going, so I pushed it up to the pendants here. Right? And then our lights come up on the aisles here because people were walking in the aisles. So I wanted to spotlight them coming in the aisles. I forget where the heck those lights were even coming from. I thought it was those movers, but weird. I must be a magician. Okay. And then I don't have all these cues labeled, so I don't remember what they all do. Oh yeah, this fades down. And then, yeah. Okay, and then our choir comes up to sing.
So when Cameron was programming this, he was literally changing each fixture and telling it what he wanted to do, what color, what position, what brightness. And once he got the look that he wanted, he recorded it in what's called a cue.
Yep.
The cue is basically a visual snapshot of the entire look, and he put it into the cue list. And then all he has to do is hit a go button, and it changes from one look to the next to the next.
Yep.
So he went right down the program order and the different lighting changes and programmed looks for each change in the program.
How do you cue it?
What's that?
Who loves the cue?
Lost the cue?
No, it said who loves it.
Oh, loves the cue.
Yeah.
How do you cue?
So with a show like this, there's probably very little rusking. Is that what you call it?
Busking.
Very little bus. Yeah.
Busking.
I don't. Yeah.
You hope so.
Ideally, there is none because this is a proper
Yeah.
like theatrical
In-
style show.
In this concert, we had a full dress rehearsal the morning
Yeah, we
of.
did.
Yeah.
And Cameron spent, 2-3 days before that programming different looks, and then that whole morning he was changing and adapting, and then right up until 5 minutes before doors, he was making changes and
Yeah.
making,
Which is not ideal.
not ideal, but,
But-
doable in a pinch.
Yeah.
I see that quite a bit with lighting guys, though. They're always tinkering. Oh, it's the same as audio, but I always see them over there working their scene
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And
Well, yeah. And in like a
First high school
in like a-
editing it, like during the like free show for all the
Yeah.
testing and everything, like,
yeah. Like in a theatrical context, that's more frowned upon than in like a concert
Mhm.
context.
Yeah, rock and
Like, in
roll.
a
I see them all
theater
the time programming right up to
context,
show.
Like your lights are locked in.
I've seen guys program their show during the opening act.
Yeah. No. And see.
That's so disrespectful.
that's not good.
No.
How do you cue it then? Like obviously you set it to where you want it, but how do you end up saving it? Like is there
It's just
I
like a
just-
save
I
button.
just
There's
say
a record cue.
and then
You
I
know,
type
and
in
just like in computers, you want to save often. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is why
Save early, save often.
Mm-hmm.
one time I had it where that failed and we were like, crap.
And don't forget to do a backup file, and
Yep.
you know
Yep.
every once in a while get it
Every-
up on a USB
every
or
10 cues or so, I put my USB in here and save it to my USB. And,
yep.
yep.
This light board is the same light board that is over in Matthews.
Yep.
So different lighting system, same light board.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So we actually tried to mimic
That's smart.
all of the audiovisual components from here and Matthews are very similar. The audio console this is the big brother to that one, but it has the same operating interface on the screen. We use ProPresenter over there for video. It's all very, 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 very similar, so that if you learn one, you can basically go over and work on the other.
Figured out in like 5-10 minutes.
Yep, basically.
Gotcha. That's good.
This is just everything in here is just a little bit more complicated.
Well, yeah.
All right.
Lights.
So here we have the look for what I called a my pre-reader look. So I have these scattered throughout the show every time the choir is done singing, but the readers who are coming up and like reading some kind of passage from a Christmas story in whatever language aren't quite ready yet. So I've got dim stage lights so they can see, but I'm not pulling the audience's attention to them quite yet. Because it's really awkward, like, when you just have to, like, sit there as an audience member and wait for people to walk on stage. But if I have my lights dim, then it's much less awkward because I'm telling the audience, it's okay, we're not supposed to be focusing on them yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then when the readers are actually ready, I can bring out my light. And I believe this was, like, African, I believe. So I have a lot of oranges and whatnot because it matched kind of what you think of when you think Africa. You think about oranges and yellows and that sort of
Notice
thing.
that all of his transitions are smooth and timed, right?
Yeah.
He can control how much time it takes to make that transition. Sometimes in a dramatic theater production, there's a really dramatic blackout where it's just instantaneous, all the lights cut out.
Just why I asked earlier what your roll time was, like how long could you have them switch colors and stuff.
It could be instant.
I've got queue times in here everywhere from instant to like 30 seconds.
Right. You actually did a really good job on this.
Thank you.
I can respect it.
So-
Hard it is.
Post reader is a 1.5 fade. I've got some, if you're looking at the cue list here, I've got some weird cues in here that are like 0 and then it follows to another one. I had to put these in here because of that stupid mover there, and I
was
spent
making
hours on them because this guy makes a ton of noise when he moves slowly, so I had to put in these weird special cues to make just him move instantly so he wouldn't be as loud, and then make everything else move in more slowly. And that was like 2 hours right there. That cue, 2 hours.
That's the brain of a person that is far more advanced in lighting than I am. 'Cause I am
Now,
not
if
that
I were that
patient.
advanced, it would not have taken.
It would have
2
taken you
hours.
6 hours.
I am not that patient. I would have given up and asked somebody else to do it.
Yeah. So here we are at the end of the reader. It's basically the same as the pre-reader look in most cases. And then we go into a song, right? So here I'm using my lighting to add contrast, right? So I've got orange and purple, which are not even remotely close to each other on the color wheel, right? And I'm using purple backlights with like orangish front lights to create this contrast and to create visual interest, and especially like with the band there and like all of their super shiny instruments, it looked so cool. You know, and then I've also got, you'll notice the choir is in red right now. And I had that purple as well. But I found that because the focal point here is in purple, your eye kind of drifted into the choir, even though they're not doing anything right now because it was like the same color. And I found that by making it red, I can make sure that the choir can still see to get on and off because they're moving around during this musical number. But your eye doesn't automatically go to them because it's like kind of different from everything else, like at your focal point.
That would have been a problem.
So I'm basically, all I'm doing is directing the audience's attention. I'm basically screaming at the audience, hey, look at this. Doesn't this look cool? Don't pay attention to that. That's
Basically,
not
the
cool.
traditional idea of magic trick.
Yeah, basically. So
It's a good idea.
you'll notice that like I have a lot of lights in here. I'm using hardly any of them for this scene. Like, I mean, look at how many lights are off. Like, they're all
It's just
off.
the top
Like, I have
section
no
up there.
peak lights. Most of the stage lights are off. The column lights are off. The window lights are just kind of barely glowing just because it looks weird when they're off. You'll notice that even the cross is about as close to off as I can get it without someone screaming at me to turn the cross back on.
Like John.
Yeah,
Is there
basically.
is there a light behind the cross pointing back at the wall?
It's just these 2 lights.
They're actually strand fixtures.
Yeah, those are strands.
Black.
But
Left
there's
colors.
one on either side of the cross. So I believe
It was a pure coincidence that when we turned on those lights, it created the 2 shadows back behind it. That was not intended. But now they love it.
yeah.
Happy accidents.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can't quite tell here because I've made it subtle enough that people wouldn't yell at me for it. But I have my 2 different lights going in the 2 different directions on the cross are actually 2 different colors.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The one is purple and the other one is the orange.
I can tell because there's 2 different shadows.
Yeah, you can tell if you look at the shadows.
Yeah, I
But like if
noticed
you're
that.
just kind of casually like not even looking at the cross because it's not the focal point, you wouldn't notice it. But it adds like visual interest that you'll notice in your subconscious.
No, I knew it's different colors.
So, like, if I were to do something like I had in my original version of this show file, I went a little bit crazy with the cross. And I had one cue that, I kid you not,
Blasphemy.
looked like this. Sadly, Dr. Walters nixed that almost immediately.
Out of curiosity, do
Little-
you guys have like the
too much
rule of
conflict.
thumb of just no green? 'Cause
Green and
I've
lighting
done-
and production lighting
Is
is
Spare-
very, very hard to pull off.
mostly because it looks really gross on people's faces.
People look sick when you put them in green. Not like sick rad, dude. Like, bleh.
Well, and I've heard even worse is people like African American people
Yep.
under
No,
green.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
no.
It's like-
Just no.
Just a way
Save
big.
green for your laser shows.
Yeah. You can. I use green backlight sometimes, but I have to make sure I give them plenty of white front light to make their faces not even have a tinge of green on them.
Which is hard because green, Christmas, you
Yeah.
you typically just put your green up in the pendants and leave
yeah.
it in the
or
architectural
like, or
lighting.
like
That's
I
not
like
anywhere
watch my
near.
stage in green when there's no one on it. The moment there's someone on it, it's going not green.
Heaven and hell begin here.
Yeah, I was just
All right.
wondering, 'cause I've only ever been able to pull off green at the end of
Well, that's nice stuff. Anyone know what time it is?
It is
803.
808. 808.
We should start probably.
We got a question over here real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess just going off of that, like, are there? Like, I know a lot of the audio and the visual world is pretty much just purely aesthetics,
Mm-hmm.
but are there like general rule of thumb do's and don'ts for lighting?
So, take into account what event you are doing, right? So, if you're at a church, what is the intent of the lighting for that service? And it's going to vary by churches. Some churches say we're going to do moving lights, but you can't put your moving lights in the faces of the people. You can't put any of that light. It all has to be above their heads. Some say no moving lights, but we can do a little bit of color splash on the back wall and make it accent, right? As far as rule of thumb, you never want to mess with seeing the main object of the event. So if you have people on stage, one way or another, you need to make sure that those people can be seen. You wouldn't want this look unless it's very, very intentional where you're trying to detract. So like in a worship environment, if they went all acoustic and everybody's just singing out and having a moment, that's fine. But as soon as they come back to talk, where am I supposed to be looking, right? You're trying to create a focal point. And it's all about, and no matter where you're at in the audiovisual part of the booth, you are trying to create a distraction-free environment, taking away the distractions. When the room lights are full, you see everything. You see the person scratching their nose. You see the person walking in across the room. You see a lot of things that can distract you from what's going on. As far as concerts go, rule of thumb, I mean, just make sure the act can be seen.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's no rules to what concert lighting can do. I mean, they can go crazy.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in there because that's one markedly different thing between audio and lighting. Is in audio we always attempt to be as transparent as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're amplifying something, but we're actually amplifying something that is on the stage, like the guitar or the vocal, right? And we want to just make that guitar sound just like it is, but louder.
Yep.
We want to make that band sound just like they do, but louder. We don't want people to really notice the sound system. We want them just to organically think it's a loud band. You know, in lighting, especially in rock and roll, and probably more in rock and roll than anything else, the lights really are what they're showing off. I mean, I know lights are used to focus on the singer, right? But so much more, I think, as we go into the future, as I've noticed over the last 20 years in this industry, it went from brightening up something on the stage to now it is the beam. That is, people, you know, and the color of all the beams pointing down, and the entire like vertical experience of the lights are all being, you know, used aesthetically. You know, at least I feel like that.
Yeah.
Now I know that is still there to accent the main focal point of the show, but so much of the lights now is like the show.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
Lighting has really become entertainment, part of the show.
You know, where audio still remains just this thing that supports totally the
Yep.
the thing that's happening.
Unless you're doing EDM.
Then audio, then
Then be right next to the subs, as close to the subs, in between the subs, on the subs.
under the subs.
Right, subs. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, like you said, the show you're doing. That thing is determined often before you even turn on a light.
Yep.
What is the reason for this event? What do we want this audience to walk away with? It could be a corporate event where you want them to walk away with feeling like they really want to give money to this event. You know? How do you help that through lighting? I'm sure that you guys would have something to say.
I can speak into our chapels. You may notice that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there's no special lighting for chapels. And I have a lot of students, more than just this year, every single year, I have students that ask me, why don't we use more color? Why don't we have all of this technology, we have all these LEDs, why don't we do more? Why don't we use the movers for chapel? And truly, the reason is because chapel is not about that kind of experience. Chapel is more focused on a community feel. I'm not flashing the lights at you. It's also not dark outside, so you wouldn't really get the effect anyway. But that's not what that's meant for, right? Monday, Wednesday, Friday is a little bit more traditional, and it's only occasionally about the students. We want them to be able to have an evening of what they're kind of used to, right? And so we allow the lighting can be a little bit more colorful, darker. We try to create it's a different kind of experience. Evensong is meant to be slightly different than a regular chapel. So it's all very intentional. It's just as intentional as any other audio or video decision that we make. Everything has a purpose to it and has been thought out extensively. And we are, especially back here in the tech booth, we are always open and willing to talk about those things and explain our thought process behind it. And that's why I kind of point out to all the students that come back here, the signs on either side of this booth really explaining the heart of what we're doing. We're not here to be like, no, you can't have the volume that loud. No, you can't have the lights that color. No, you can't do that. No, no, no. We're here to support the interest of the community. We're trying to create an experience each and every time you step foot in this chapel where you can encounter God. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's where our heart is.
All right. Well, with that, I think if we could go back to the class, we might want to spend a little time with some fixtures I have back there.
Ooh, toys.
Mm-hmm.
There has been haze. We don't have any. We don't own any. Here. Dave and I don't own any. I know Cam's does, but it's broken.
Yeah.
Which we've told them how to fix it. They have to go to a company. But yes, we do. We have had haze in here. You have to turn off the fire alarms.
Thanks, John.
No problem. Thank you guys for coming. I'm sorry if I bored you.